بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. Islamic theology, Islamic liberation theology does not only offer a critique of oppressions of all form, but it is an utter rejection of the oppressions in these different kinds of categories that you mentioned, the oppressions of class, the oppressions of gender, the oppressions of race, ethnicity, and so on. Of course, we're living in an era where our lives aren't only characterized by oppressions in the formal senses or in the ways in which we have understood them all the time. We're now living in a digital age of algorithms where it doesn't matter the extent of our voices or how loud we shout or how loud we scream or how many people we have in a resistance movement. It nearly seems inconsequential, because determining who to switch us on and who to switch our voices off, it no longer lies in our hands. It lies in the hands of those who have control over the means of communication, which exists nearly entirely in the digital world. So in some ways, when we speak now about the liberation of humankind, we are both talking about our liberation from the addiction to the digital age, and also from the power that digital age has over the minds of people. So it's a complex challenge, because it is a relatively new challenge, and just generally, but regrettably, theologies always emerge after the fact. So you have your struggle, for example. In the case of South Africa, we had the struggle against apartheid, and when the struggle ended, then we were able to reflect on our struggle. So religious thinking often comes after the fact. Religious thinking is often, behind where the ideas and development is, and we try to play catch up. Unfortunately, the urgency is so dire that we can't afford to play the game of catching up. We have to intervene actively, and we need to do so immediately, despite the fact that we don't often have the skills to do it. And then, of course, the responses from religious scholars has the additional inadequacy that religious scholars, our basic impulse is the past. We think about the earlier precedents in fiqh or in tafsir. Our tradition, it is how it is passed on from the one to the other, the manqul tradition. Our tradition isn't one about dealing with immediate and fast changing issues, as is cyberspace and the digital era. It doesn't allow us that careful reflection, that careful studying of the past and so on. And so there's a great urgency that we have to embrace, whether we like it or not. Well, that's a very difficult question, because children and their relationship with their parents is largely dependent on the greater society wherein they live. So what is a wise and a good parental move in Iran may have the exact opposite effect in another country where people don't live under the social or the religious constraints that you have in a country like Iran. So for example, if you're speaking to a young Muslim person in the United States or in Cape Town, and you tell the person that he or she should have no access to social media or to it's impossible, because this is ubiquitous. It characterizes all of our lives, and there is simply no escape from it. So this is the first challenge. The second challenge is that although parents are able to put the restrictions on what is viewable inside their homes, the child is not always inside the home, and there are lots of other areas or avenues where the children can get exposed to digital content or online content. So in some ways, the problem is an insurmountable one. It's not really a problem that can be completely solved. The challenge is how to walk with your children, and knowing that your children are walking into the dark, and you don't have a clue exactly where they are walking in, and at the same time, to remain sure that you are nearby, that if they scream or if they get lost and they're desperate to get out of the woods that they are in, that you're going to be there and that you're going to be supportive as they're trying to get out. You're not going to scream at them and shout at them and punish them because they have gone off into the dark. Your responsibility then is, how do I nurture my child into getting back to a normal life? And a normal life could mean, a life of non-addiction to your instruments, to your equipment, whether it is your laptop or your cell phone or your digital watch or any of these things. So there is an abnormality, of course, in the very addiction to all of these things, and that is something that I can raise in a short while again. But the influence of the fact of the child moving into dark areas that was unknown to you, and you don't even know where the child is going, that is a reality, I think, that we can't escape from. So our challenge is, how do we begin to understand that world, and how do we show the child our presence in his or her life? So that's the one thing, so that the child knows, that my parents are there for me the moment I want to get out of this darkness, or that I feel addicted to it, and that we treat addiction then as we treat any other addiction, that it is a sickness, it is an illness. And then, of course, the second part to that is not only to fear or to be anxious about this digital era, but also to see in it opportunities for the creation of new content, content that may be traditional in substance, that have its deeply religious implications that comes along with it, but at the same time they are packaged in a way in which our children and our young adults can actually understand. So our language has to evolve. I'm talking about the language of parents. Our language has to evolve. Young people, we think that they speak exactly our language, but they're speaking a new language, a different language. And so parents have the responsibility to become familiar with that language, so that our children don't move off into areas where they feel that their parents are no longer any part of their lives. So it's a bit of a struggle that we have to remain a part of the lives of our children. And this unfortunately means that we must also have an idea of where they are going to. And where they are going to is often frightening for parents. And the only way we generally cope with this, they're moving into the darkness, it is through anger. We are angry that they have betrayed our traditions, that they are going against our religious values, and then our first response is to go to the route of punishment. And perhaps in the contemporary world, that is not the most effective way of dealing with our children. We need to understand, we need to support them, not what they do, but we need to support them, and we need to deal with them in the ways which are kind. You know, even the Qur'an, in another context, speaks about this, you know, when it says, وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ, and contend with them in the ways in which are best. And sometimes, I mean, in a previous age, you know, corporal punishment, hitting your children may have been the best way. But that's clearly not a way that is productive in this age in which we are living. So I suggest that's how some of the mechanisms, I think, that how parents deal with the challenges that comes from the digital age or internet addiction. The important thing is also for parents to be educated. It's for parents to be educated and for parents to be an educational example. I mean, education doesn't happen by me preaching to you or by me telling you, you know, you must do this and that, and you can't do this and that. That's not the only means of education. The most effective ways of education are more positive. And that is that you yourself, you are an example to them of how they should relate to their internet machinery. So when your children come in and you are busy on the phone, you tell your guest on the phone that just hold on, I'll get back to you, my children have just come in. When you are on your computer or on your telephone doing something on social media or something, you leave it. You leave it, you speak to your children. Your children have to understand that they are your priority. Sadly, many parents today, they sleep on their phones. They sleep also on their laptops, mostly on their phones. And their children then internalize all of this and they think it is okay. Sometimes you get into the houses of people and the kids are busy on their phone, even the small children, they're busy on their phones. And the parents don't tell the children, the parents don't inculcate these adab, these the manners of how to treat visitors or how to speak to each other. And sadly, it is a very lazy way of parenting. It's like, you know, you give the child these toys to play with. Yeah, play with your phone. Yeah, play with your phone. Because parents aren't attentive to children. They feel they don't have the time. Possibly they may be overworked. They've worked too hard. They come home, they are tired. So those are some of the reasons why parents aren't really able to properly educate their children. Some of these things, it's quite legitimate, it's understandable that parents are tired, and yet, you know, at the same time, for the tarbiyah, for the proper rearing of our children, we simply have to prioritize our time with our children so that they don't become completely lost in this world of the morass of cyberspace. But having said that, I must also point out that, I mean, cyberspace is not only a dark space. Cyberspace is also a place where possible education can take place. It can enhance your understanding of your faith, of your traditions. And so we have to find ways to draw people's attention to that. And as I said earlier on, to make our social media attractive in terms of the language that younger people understand. Well, the first thing is that the only way to approach a sense of powerlessness is that you must be educated, that you must be educated yourself. And the best teachers in this regard are your children. So tell them, I don't understand how this works. What are the basics that I need to learn? How does well, most people today, they know how to use WhatsApp, they know how to open up their emails and so on. But what are the further mechanisms that I can do to read up things? What is the distinction between ChatGPT, and Google? How can I read up more? So the first thing that parents have to do is you have to learn. It's difficult. You may find that you are too old, that your own horizons is a very traditional one, that this thing belongs to the kids and so on. But really it is an obligation. Whether you like it or not, this is the way the world is going. We are in some ways powerless against it. And the only way in which to limit our powerlessness is to acquire some power over it ourselves. And the only way to do that is to become more familiar, to develop more knowledge about it, how it works. And based on that and our own insights into how it works and its power, to that extent, we are able to cope with our own, we can empower ourselves in dealing with our children. The people and as social agents, they have a responsibility to do this. The same goes for character education. How are your morals being shaped and so on? The house is your first port of learning. It's your entry into the outside world. It's the entry into akhlaq and character and so on. And very often inside the house, what you learn from your parents, and if there is stability inside the house, and this is the harmony also between parents and how the love and the care with which they rear their children, this is the strongest basis for fortifying, for strengthening your children to face the outside world. They will go into the outside world and they will see that this outside world, this is not the best option. It's not the best option in terms of akhlaq, in terms of your character development, in terms of your values and the way you really want to be. But the first sense of who do I want to be, and appreciating who I want to be and who I am, the first sense of that comes from inside the home. Then you have the responsibility of the state. The state can't be the creator of character. The state can't be the inspirer of behavior. The state has to ensure that at the public level, nothing happens in society that militates against our values and our faith and so on. That nothing happens against it. And the state has to create a supportive environment for the development of people's characters and support structures for families in order to assist parents in this larger project of character development. So talking then about the state, for example, when I said earlier on that parents come home and they are either too lazy, but sometimes they're also too tired to pay attention to their children. And so does the state provide support for parents that they don't have to work so hard, long hours every day, that they come home and that they are tired to pay attention to their children? So when you talk about the responsibility of the state, it is not primarily to be a policeman over the akhlaq, over the behavior of society. the state is also responsible to ensure that there are the social and the economic conditions for people so that they can also breathe and relax and have proper time for these relationships with their children and their family, rather than being worn out in the workplace and exhausted and worked to death for very little money or no money. So that is also part of the responsibility of the state, beyond just preaching or sermonizing or the khutbahs that the religious leaders on behalf of the state deliver and preach to people. Well, you're relating the question of digital space and gender discrimination. It's a bit of a loose question, but the cyberspace is an area for the reinforcement of gender-based violence, and so it reproduces all of that, but it also encourages bullying. And generally, in bullying, it is always the weaker parts of our society that becomes the victims. And so not only do you have cyberbullying, but there is a more particular form of cyberbullying of women. Social media, especially amongst males, generally engage in caricatures of women, the objectification of women, the perception that women are only sexual beings, that they aren't ordinary human beings, that have ordinary human needs, and who are every bit as entitled to dignity and to a voice and to fairness and justice as what men are. And so the cyberspace reproduces what not only reproduces how society has diminished women, cyberspace has ways of even enhancing the discrimination that women face in our society. And so it's a question of both protecting people and alerting them to the peculiarities, the specific ways in which cyberspace discriminates against women, but also how society replicates all of that. And this doesn't mean, that women are only victims on cyberspace or in social things. Women can also become like men. Women can also become the enemies of other women. Women can also buy into the dominant ideas of what it means to be a woman. It means to be stylish. It means to be fashionable. It means to be to present your body, your body as your currency. So I will sell my body as the means of attracting more attention to me. Men also do this. It's not particularly women, but society, because it is male-dominated, it feasts on women who caricature themselves in those kinds of situations. And so it is. One can't simply address this question by looking at women in cyberspace or the oppression of women in cyberspace. It is a reflection of a much larger social thing, and that is why we need to address it at a social level, and hopefully it reflects in cyberspace. Well, first of all, I'm not a child of the AI age, let alone I'm not a child even of the computer age, let alone the digital age. I learned from them about, how does this work, how does that work, and mercifully I have good teachers from them. No, you must do this. No, and you have to learn how to do this. No, I'm not going to do it for you. you come sit here and I show it how to do. So because often what children do is they don't want parents to become informed about this, because they don't want parents to know what's going on in that world. But in some ways, it is like the game that parents themselves play with children. For example, if you have two Farsi speaking parents, and you are now living in, say you're living in the West or you're living in Los Angeles, then what the parents do, they speak to each other in Farsi, but they speak to the children in English. And they don't want the child to learn Farsi, because this is the parents' secret language amongst each other. And so we want to talk about the child, we want to talk about confidential things or adult things, and we don't want the child to understand it, so we speak to each other in Farsi. We don't speak to the child, we don't want the child to learn Farsi. It's quite common. And then afterwards, of course, the child grows up, the child knows nothing about Farsi. The child may understand some words that his father or mother or his grandfather or grandmother may speak, but the child doesn't speak Farsi, and as time goes on, the child doesn't understand Farsi. So in some ways what is happening is the reverse of this in communication between parents and children on social media and so on. The children think that, wait, I'm not going to share any knowledge about this with my parents. The more ignorant they remain, the less they will know about my world. And so I'm not going to be educating my parents. So this is like quite common, this game of who remains ignorant and so on. And children are shrewd. They want us to remain ignorant. And partly this is natural as children grow up. It is natural that they, when they enter their teens, that, I don't want my parents to know who all my friends are. I don't want them to know this and that. And children, they become more secretive. And most parents panic when their children don't want to say, so this, like, Mom, I'm going to go out. And then your mom asks, who are you going to go out with? And then you say, oh, I'm going to go out with a friend. And then your mother says, which friend are you going out with? And this, hey, Mom, I'm just going to go out with friends. Why? And then your mother panics. And your mother thinks, hey, I must have complete knowledge of everything that you do. So why aren't you telling me? And then your mother, you forget your phone. One day you forget your phone there in the room, or you are in the bathroom and you left your phone there, and then your mother starts wanting to quickly look at your phone in order to see where you've been. Most of these things are natural, but at some point we also have to trust our children, and we have to trust that the basic instincts and the basic teachings that we gave them in our house, the ethics, the values that we taught them, and that we must trust that, inshallah, that will remain, the basic pillars upon which they will move in the different circles that they will move. And we do so rather than trying to control their every minute of the day. And so, yes, I try to remain familiar with things. I'm not very young. I'm 70 years old. But I try to stay in touch with these things. I try to walk, with others, so that they know I'm there, I'm supportive of what they're doing, and that I will pull them back if they go too far, to use the metaphor again of going into the dark. But we should finish now, because I am tired of sitting here in the dark, and like the darkness of cyberspace, I need to be liberated from it. So I must get out of here to be liberated from the darkness of this studio.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Okay, tashakkur.